Welcome to Black Nouveau. This is our edition for April 20th, 2016. I'm Joanne Williams. Chef Ace Champion specializes in Cajun and Creole cooking. He joins us to talk about his new TV show. State Senator Nikiya Harris Dodd reports on the second annual Unite Milwaukee Summit. And we'll talk with a survivor of human trafficking. You know, April is Autism Awareness Month. The Centers for Disease Control recently announced an increase in the frequency of children with autism. The previous estimate was 1 child in 88 would have the condition. Now it's 1 child in 68. Autism spectrum disorder is defined in part as a serious developmental disorder that impairs a child's ability to communicate with others. We spoke with 2 families who are on this tough journey. Autism is not easy.
Take you.
His job at home is to close when it gets dark.
It's a constant challenge for the child with the disorder, and it's a constant struggle for parents.
Okay.
I remember when back when Brandon was younger and people would stare at him, I would feel sick. One time we got on the bus and somebody told me I need to whoop him because he was showing, and I for a long time couldn't get on the city bus. I'm telling you, I was, for a long time, when I think about it, I still get sick because of how people were just staring at us. But now if someone's staring, I look back at them and I let them know, looking at them like, no, it's not okay to stare at my son. I don't say anything to him, although at Mayfair the other day, I did say something to this kid. Yeah, and I don't feel bad because I didn't say anything like bad. I just said, is everything okay? You were looking at my son. I just want to make sure everything's okay.
With you.
Right. Are you okay?
Veronica Nolden is talking about her 12-year-old son, Brandon.
There were just a lot of things as I compared him to his older brother that he wasn't doing. And then, of course, you hear people whispering in the background, something is wrong with that kid. And so after a couple of years of, I took him to the doctor and kept saying that, this is not right or that's not right. And then they would say, well, give it a time. All kids develop differently. And then at 5 years old, he was diagnosed actually by the school.
What did you think when you heard the whispers?
I was upset, probably a little in denial, because I wanted him to wake up tomorrow and be right on task. So I didn't want to believe these people. And as I saw him, this was my baby, and nothing was wrong with him.
Tara Adams is talking about her 15-year-old son, Kobe. Both mothers knew little or nothing about autism until it became part of their family. And both want other parents to be aware, be alert, and be understanding.
When you finally found out what his condition was, were you relieved?
No, because it was another unknown journey that I didn't know about. And I didn't have resources, and again, I didn't know people who had it that would help me. And then going through and trying to get the therapy, someone would tell you this, someone would tell you that. So I wasn't relieved probably until he was about 8 when the help came in and I started seeing some progress.
Kobe's father, Reggie Adams, fought back with knowledge.
I didn't know much until I got some books and read up on it. And then when I read up on it, I really read up on it. And then a lot of things that I was reading, I was starting to think, oh, okay. But then as you be around him, you learn more from him. I mean, he's immaculate with his hands, with computers. He's phenomenal. So he teaches me things.
What do you want other dads to know about autism?
Just be there for your kids, work with them, and they'll get through it. And I call him my little angel because he's so special, and he just brings joys to my heart. And I'm proud of him.
The first thing I would always say was somebody to find a support group. There is nothing like a support group, because you are dealing with people who are in the same situation that you in, or somewhat similar, rather than someone who was dealing with a child that doesn't have a disability and does not understand.
So do you support each other?
Oh yeah,
most definitely.
all the time.
All the time. Sometimes we're supporting each other to 2 o'clock in the morning. We do it. But I mean, it's become more than that relationship. We have become friends.
Elizabeth Drame is chairman of the Exceptional Education Department at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. She believes that Black parents need all the information they can get about autism, but too often they don't get it.
There's a racial disparity gap in the diagnosis of autism and in the access to intervention. And so Black children are 1 or 2 years, they're diagnosed 1 or 2 years later than white children. Okay, so there's a problem there. And it's not because there's a difference in the rate of autism across racial categories or socioeconomic categories. There's no evidence to suggest that there's a different rate, but there's a reason for the disparity, and it's primarily because of lack of knowledge and also because of lack of access to quality health care, and sometimes because of negative perceptions or negative misdiagnoses.
Autism disorders are differences in how the brain uses information. Some cases are mild and some are more pronounced. Autistic disorders are categorized on a spectrum, all the different kinds under one umbrella. This is how they are labeled: Asperger's, childhood disintegrative disorder, Rett's, pervasive developmental disorder, and autism. And medical professionals don't always get the correct diagnosis the first time.
What did you think when you were getting all these mixed messages? One doctor was saying one thing, somebody else was saying another thing, the teacher was saying this, and how did you feel?
I felt very overwhelmed. I felt lost. I felt like I need somebody to tell me exactly what I need to do. It's just too much information, too many people telling me different things. I need for one person to tell me what I need to do, where I need to go, who I need to talk to, and then how to get those tools for my son set in place for him for the rest of his life.
What do you want other families to know? What do you want other big brothers to know about having an autistic sibling?
I think that you shouldn't let that dictate your relationship or use that as a crutch or anything. I mean, at the end of the day, they're just like you. They have their own aspirations and goals and dreams, and nothing should kind of hold them or hinder them from achieving what they want. Sure, it might take you a little bit more time to understand it, but at the end of the day, they're just another kid.
And here's a website where you can find resources and more information.
The second Unite Milwaukee Summit was held on April 9, 2016. State Senator Nikiya Harris Dodd joins us with a report. Thank you.
Glad to be here.
So what happened at the summit?
Well, as you know, this past Saturday, the Unite Milwaukee Summit went off, the second annual, and it was a really good event this year because we held it in the 53206 zip code, and as you know, that is one of the areas that is hardest hit by our high incarceration. However, this conversation was about gun violence and making sure that young people know and older adults know that we need to have an intergenerational conversation about the violence in our community. And it was a really good day. I mean, the sun was shining as opposed to today, but it was an opportunity again to have that conversation with our young people and our adults and them being strengthened and reminded that their community belongs to them, and that with a voice and a concerted effort to take back their neighborhoods by starting block clubs, if at the very least speak to your neighbor, that they are able to do that.
So any concrete actions taken?
So what we did this year to try to have something more concrete is to have a workshop that would allow for people to write letters to their legislator. And in that letter, it was a template, but yet we had an opportunity for people to handwrite those letters as well, and that we would send those letters to their legislators. So in the case that someone didn't know or hadn't known who their representatives were in the state or even locally, we would have that information available just by them providing their home address with zip code, and we can look it up for them and then be able to send the letter off for them.
What issues and concerns stood out the most?
I think, people were concerned that there were not enough youth programs. Job training programs were no longer really readily available at the fingertips of our young people, as well as having mentoring programs. So as much as we wanted to have that intergenerational conversation, a lot of the conversation leaned toward our young people and trying to find opportunities for them.
Within a few days of the conference or the summit, 5 teens were shot, 2 were killed. What's at the root causes of teen violence that's going on in Milwaukee right now?
And that's a conversation that we're still, having, like what is causing all our young people to take up arms and harm each other. And I wish I really had the answer, but I think there are so many factors that are contributing to the cause. And we just, you can blame it on the lack of strong policies in the state legislature. You can blame it on not having a strong family structure. You can blame it on so many things, but I think what it really boils down to is that are there enough outlets for our young people to be engaged in a extracurricular type of activities, whether that is being a part of a basketball team, whether that is going skating on Saturday night with friends, just having a good relationship with adults and being able to know that you can talk to an adult when you're hurting. And I guess there's so many factors, it's really hard to put my finger on it, but I'm still having those conversations on a regular basis. What is contributing to this violence amongst our young people? And if there is something we can blame, it could be that maybe there's not enough activities and resources to meet their needs. What are the young people telling you that they need? And that's that mentoring component. A lot of young people are saying, it would be nice to have a mentor, someone that I can talk to when I'm going through, because our young people have lost so many friends to violence. They feel like they are alone and that they have no one to talk to about it because they're experiencing an exuberant amount of deaths in their young lives. And so to have a mentor would be one huge thing that we can do to help our young people, and that's what they're saying that they would like, as well as jobs. Our young people want to make their own money. They don't want to be dependent on their parents, because they have certain tennis shoes they want to wear. They have field trips that they may want to go on because their parents are providing for their basic needs. They may not have that extra income to do that, and so our young people are really screaming for some type of independence to be able to take care of themselves in a small way as to having a summer job. Real quick, has the concealed carry law had any impact on violence here? Unfortunately, I can't say that it has. Because I would say what we've seen in the state of Wisconsin is that it contributes to the fact that we don't have strong enough laws. And when I say strong, I don't mean the tough on crime type of laws where you lock them up and put them away for very minor offenses, but laws that are going to say we will not allow for access for individuals who are prohibited from owning or even accessing firearms. Last question, will the summit continue? The summit will continue. I am very excited to report that I will be putting together a proposal along with my team to figure out what was the best of Summit 1, what's the best of Summit 2, bring them together and continue the ball rolling so that we can find a cure for the violence amongst our young people and even adults in our community. Thank you.
And that's all in the wrist, just like so.
I'm not doing that yet.
Nah, don't do it yet. Don't do it yet.
Right
I get
here.
you. Wait for about the 3rd or 4th episode.
Yeah.
Man, you should be ready.
I'm like the turtle right now.
And that's a segment from a new cooking show that has its premiere this month in many TV stations in Wisconsin. We're joined by Chef Ace Champion. Welcome.
Thank you.
First thing I want to know is, how can you chop so fast?
Well, I do a lot of visualization. So by me always visualizing what I need to do before it, it's almost like I'm always a couple steps ahead of myself. And 20 years experience helps out too as well.
Well, it's the 20 years experience.
There's a lot of technique that comes behind the cutting like that.
So how did you're still quite a young man.
Yes, yes.
How did you become a chef? And why did you become a chef?
Well, at a young age, I always knew I loved to cook. And the first job I had was actually at a dishwasher. And when I saw the cook whip up those eggs and just put all those orders together all at once, I knew that was something that I wanted to do. And once I started doing it, just the passion just took over. And I really, after 20 years, I haven't done much besides cooking.
Well, you still eating of your food too.
Definitely.
And you have a special area that you like to cook in, right? Creole. or Cajun, but they're not the same thing.
They're not the same. Cajun, it can tend to be very spicy. A lot of those people lived on the bayou, and you know, when you're eating gator and raccoon, you got to make it a little bit spicy. But I specialize more in the Creole sense, which is a blend of South African, French, and Spanish, all infusing together. So if you ever hear people talk about how great New Orleans food is, that's why it's 4 cultures infused in one. So that's pretty much what I specialize in. But I'm all across the board when it comes to food.
So how'd you get from being a chef, and you had to go to school to be a chef, right?
I did. I put myself through culinary arts school when I was 32, so I went a little bit late. Hardest thing I ever could have did, but it really taught me a lot of the financial end of owning a business, cost controls, all the stuff that I didn't know besides just cooking. So yeah, I graduated 2012 and been self-employed ever since.
Now, interesting story about how you ended up in culinary school.
Yes, yeah. Well, I moved up here from Louisiana, and like I said, that was one of the main questions that a lot of my clients were asking me. Where did I go to school at? And all my years, I kept telling myself, I can't go to school. It's too long. And well, then when I stopped telling myself what I couldn't do, I actually found that they had an accelerated program. So I was able to go to school 2 nights a week for my 2 years. And like I said, probably the hardest thing I ever could have done in my life. But I did graduate in 2012.
Now, why did you go to culinary school? You said you had a little physical challenge before
I did. When I was 30 years old, I had an opportunity to open up a restaurant. And I don't know if it was the stress. I know high blood pressure runs in both sides of my family. I had a stroke when I was 30. So that kind of set me back a little bit. The guy who was invested with me kind of backed out. So it pretty much made me start all over from scratch again, which was great because sometimes you need to do that. And that's when I decided that culinary arts was definitely something that I needed to put myself through.
So you went to school, you got a degree in culinary arts, and then you decided to work for restaurants?
Yeah, well, what I tried to do is I tried to go back where I left off. I just thought that, you know, I had 18 years experience at the time, I had a degree, they were gonna beat my door down, and no one knocked. So I found myself working in the same restaurants, making the same pay, and me, that wasn't acceptable. You know, I didn't go to school to make the same pay. So my ultimate dream was to be a celebrity cooking show host. So I started teaching at various locations, wineries, I would actually record myself. Hopefully I would send it to the Food Network and they would call me, but they never called, which was fine. But it allowed me to create a lucrative business. So like I said, I've been self-employed for 3 years now, and that's where I'm a private chef. I can go into people's homes, cook them fabulous meals, and then I teach them too as well. So I'm able to give back.
But somebody knocked on the door because you have a TV show.
They did. Well, actually, I knocked on their door. So I did the whole Good Day Wisconsin TV thing for about 2 years. And then there's actually a show called The Mad Donkey Mural Show. And I went and Googled their contact information, asked the producer, hey, you know, I would love to be on the show. Or on the side note, I would love to have my own show. Ironically, he lives right around the corner from my house, called me over that same day, looked over my videos, and taught me about the TV world, and we started that project back in December. And here we are now, getting ready to debut in 2 weeks now.
Soon you will be a celebrity chef.
Yes. It's one of those things where, you know, I've been working on this dream even all the way through college. And I remember the first day in college, I told them what I wanted to do, and they laughed. I mean, they laughed. And I had to realize that it's okay, because it wasn't up to them to see my vision. They didn't see my vision, so I get that. But as long as I stuck with my vision and worked towards it, as you see it, it manifests so beautifully now.
We saw him on Green. Can he cook?
Yeah, he's a very good cook. He's actually a foodie. Him and his wife are really good foodies. I met him a couple of months ago, and he's definitely opened up his house to me. I've shot 4 episodes in there. He's part of 3 of the 4. We've actually become really good friends.
Okay, well, I'm going to look for this because you're going to be teaching people how to cook too, through your show.
Yeah, and I want the show, you know, what I didn't want to have happen is, you know how you see a lot of cooking shows and they just specify in one thing. It's just Italian or just cooking. Cooking is more than just one thing. So you might see me doing sushi one day, down south the next day, Italian the next day, just all across the board. My purpose is to teach people how to cook and get them back in the kitchen cooking. I'm not hung up on all the vegetables and stuff like that. Let's just eat real food like Grandma used to cook for us. Let's start there, and then we can work with it.
Where am I going to see your show?
Right now, my show is going to be airing on Fox 11. We're also going to be on the CW18 right here in Milwaukee. I'll also be in Rochester, Minnesota, La Crosse, LeClaire, and even my hometown, Hammond, Ponchatoula, Louisiana.
All right. Well, we'll be looking for Chef Ace Champion.
Please do.
So you can say I saw him before he was a big celebrity chef.
Yes. This is the beginning of something that's going to be really big.
All right. Thank you very much for coming and talking
Thanks
to
for
us
having
today.
me.
When I first met him, and I was on the porch and I was reading a book, and he stopped and he said, "Come here." I said, "Hey," because usually he'll ride past and just wave at me. And so he had stopped and get out the car, and I'm like, oh my God, this guy is stopping. What am I gonna say? He's so fine. He got a nice car. What am I gonna say, right? And the first thing he said to me was, "You always bring these books. What you be reading?"
That was Laura Johnson's story of her first step into becoming a victim in the human sex traffic trade. From the age of 14 to 17, Johnson was forced into the sex trade by a guy she called her boyfriend.
How old was this guy?
He was about 19, 20 years old. He wasn't even old. He was not the guy who drew the Cadillac and wore the mink coats. He was the guy who drove the nice car with the nice rims, with the TVs, who smoked marijuana, who hung out with a bunch of guys. He was like the typical guy. He wasn't like the guy who would actually like dress up as a pimp, and you would be able to identify right away, well, that's a pimp. He wasn't dressed like that.
When he suggested it to you, what did you say?
He didn't really suggest it to me. We were actually going to Chicago to go hang out with some friends of his, and we actually did everything that he said we were gonna do. We went out, we hung out with his friends, we had a good time. It was getting late, and he said, well, we should stay in Chicago and we'll get back on the road in the morning. And so I'm like, great. He had never tried anything with me, never made me feel uncomfortable. I trusted him.
And then that boyfriend of 8 months, who had been buying her nice things and taking her places, changed. He explained the game she had become part of.
And if I didn't cooperate, what would happen?
What do you say was going to happen?
He would beat me up. He would chain me up. He would make me eat dog food. He would make me, he would burn me with ashes. He would make me sit in ice water. And those things actually happened while being in traffic to me. Back then, he would take pictures of us in different lingeries, and he would place us on Craigslist, and people would buy us. And so basically you were like a piece of meat.
What brought you out?
Being, well, did nothing bring me out. I actually got away from the trafficker. He had fell asleep sitting up in a chair. I made it to the door. I was so scared. And when I finally got to that door and I pulled that knob so quietly, I ran. And I just kept running.
And returning to Milwaukee after 3 years, Laura was scared, depressed, and lonely.
I didn't know what to do. I ended up on drugs. I ended up just like my mother.
We can see you, Victor. You all right? Okay.
I told myself that I'd never be like her. And I ended up just like her.
Then the world of prostitution came into play.
I had never got introduced to like prostitution. Like I knew that what he was doing wasn't right, but I didn't know what it was, And then when I found out that girls was like really standing on the corner for like getting money, and there was like no guy beating them up afterwards or nothing, I kind of felt like that was so cool. Like, what? You ain't got nobody who beating you up? You like getting the money and you being able to do whatever you want to do? Like, this might sound crazy, but for me at that time, I thought like that was like so cool. Like, okay, so you can still do whatever you want to do. You don't have to be a prisoner. Like, I felt like that was so cool, and I'm like, well, I should do it. I got to doing it.
This was a setback, along with being denied by the Children's Welfare Bureau of her child, which she had while being trafficked.
And when I told them what had happened to me, they looked at me like I was just like crazy. Like it was so foreign, you know. They told me that I'm too young to care for a child. I was 17. They told me that there's nothing that they can do because he's already in closed adoption. They told me, they made me feel less than.
And that sent her on a downward spiral until that dream of wanting to live a successful life resurfaced. That once straight-A student who went to school and did her homework was back. She dealt with her addiction and then her mental health issues.
I was always having nightmares. I couldn't sleep at night. I was like more of a floor walker. Like I would just pace 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, sweating. And I started going into women's groups. And then everything started falling into place for me.
Today, Laura Johnson is finishing up a degree in social work and raising 2 children in hopes of one day meeting her first child that was born during the time she was trafficked. And today,
I'm not scared. I'm able to like walk out of my house and not turn my back. You know, I'm more confident. I just really believe in myself and in everything that I do, and I really work hard at everything that I do, and I just feel awesome.
And that's our program for this week. For Black Nouveau, I'm Joanne Williams. Thanks for watching.